6 people hospitalized, 2 nearly dead, and hundreds more reporting severe illness. Each case traced back to something as ordinary as butter. When Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sounded the alarm, calling out 15 butter brands to avoid at all costs, many dismissed it as exaggeration. But federal food safety data now paint a far darker picture. Contaminated dairy linked to listeria, metal fragments, and even PFAS, forever chemicals, hidden in everyday grocery staples. These aren't fringe warnings. They're documented by the FDA and USDA, with thousands of pounds of recalled butter pulled from store shelves in the last 3 years alone. Yet most Americans never hear about it until it's too late. Behind the golden wrappers and smiling farm logos lies a system that prizes profit over purity, where family dairy often means mass production and chemical shortcuts. The real danger isn't just in the butter, it's in the blind trust we keep spreading across our breakfast tables. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Tonight we uncover the names behind the illusion, 15 butter brands that may be doing far more harm than you can believe. Number 1. Jif. It's funny how something as innocent as a jar of peanut butter, once the sweet smell of after-school sandwiches, can now smell like betrayal. When Robert F. Kennedy Jr. sounds the alarm about food giants to avoid, Jif deserves a spotlight under that siren. In 2022, the nation watched as the peanut butter of childhood turned into a petri dish of salmonella. 17 states, dozens sick, more than 49 products yanked off shelves like dirty secrets being swept under the rug. But what made people furious wasn't the recall itself. It was the quiet years before it, when inspectors found salmonella again and again, 12 times between 2017 and 2022. And corporate voices stayed as silent as a preacher caught in a casino. They had every warning, every reason, yet chose to gamble with the public's health. For working Americans and retirees already counting every dollar, that kind of betrayal hits like a slap from someone you thought was family. Behind Jif's smiling label sits its parent, the J.M. Smucker Company, a name that sounds cozy but hides an empire tangled in dirty supply chains. Reports linked its palm oil and sugar to deforestation and exploited labor overseas. So while their commercials bragged about wholesome family values, their ingredients whispered stories of sweatshops and vanishing rainforests. That's the twisted poetry of corporate America, where natural often means naturally profitable. Even now, the company insists everything is safe again, as if trust could be disinfected with a press release. For many Americans who grew up spreading Jif on toast, the taste has turned bitter. Once the comfort food of a simpler time, now it's the flavor of a system gone rotten. From boardroom to breakfast table. Number 2, Skippy. Some people say lightning never strikes twice, but when it comes to American peanut butter, it apparently does. Just months after Jif's salmonella disaster, Skippy, the so-called fun, family-friendly spread, was caught in its own nightmare in March 2022. Hormel Foods, its corporate parent, quietly recalled more than 80 tons of peanut butter because fragments of stainless steel might have slipped into the jars. Yes, steel. Like the stuff in your toolbox, not your toast. The recall swept across over a dozen states, turning breakfast tables into potential minefields. Officials claimed no injuries occurred, but who in their right mind trusts no one's hurt when metal could be lurking between the bread? The contamination came from a broken machine, but critics say it was a symptom of a much bigger illness: corporate decay. Hormel has long been accused of putting profit ahead of people. Its history includes questionable labor practices and disturbing footage from slaughterhouses tied to its supply chain. Now that same company controls Skippy, the peanut butter once seen as a comfort food. It's hard to feel comforted when your breakfast could chip your teeth or your conscience. Add to that the unhealthy mix of sugars and hydrogenated oils in Skippy's recipe, and it starts to feel like the brand's smiling label is just a mask for what's rotting underneath. For working-class Americans, that's the insult after the injury. Paying more each year for food that's supposed to nourish but ends up betraying. What used to be the taste of childhood now feels more like the flavor of neglect. Sweet, salty, and metallic. Number 3, Peter Pan. If peanut butter had a hall of shame, Peter Pan would own the front row seat. Long before wellness trends and organic labels ruled the aisles, This brand was already famous, for all the wrong reasons. In early 2007, the childhood favorite became the centerpiece of one of America's worst food safety disasters. Over 700 people across 47 states fell ill from a Salmonella Tennessee outbreak traced to Peter Pan's Georgia plant, where investigators later found leaky roofs, broken roasters, and evidence of rodents that had apparently joined the production team. Conagra, the manufacturer at the time, had even known about salmonella in the facility years before, but decided silence was cheaper than fixing the problem. The result? A national recall that erased every jar made since 2004. Millions of dollars lost and millions of pantries emptied overnight. By 2015, Conagra was pleading guilty to a federal crime and paying an $11.2 million fine, one of the largest penalties in food history. And yet the stain never washed off. Even after Post Holdings took control in 2020, the ghost of that outbreak still haunts supermarket shelves. The brand may have changed its look, but the ingredients didn't. Sugar, preservatives, and hydrogenated oils continue to betray the word wholesome printed on the label. Critics call it a time capsule of outdated nutrition, a relic that refuses to grow up. For working Americans who once trusted that red cap, Peter Pan has become a reminder that fairy tales can spoil, and that behind the smiling label sometimes lurks the taste of denial and dust. Number 4. Great value. If trust were currency, Walmart's Great Value brand would be bankrupt. It's the name stamped on everything from canned beans to bathroom soap, sold as the smart choice for families counting pennies. But in 2006 and 2007, that promise of thrift turned poisonous. The same Georgia factory that produced Peter Pan peanut butter also made Great Value's version, and it unleashed one of the deadliest Salmonella Tennessee outbreaks in American history. Over 700 confirmed infections across 47 states, from toddlers to seniors, all traced back to a product that proudly claimed to be great. FDA and CDC investigators found leaking roofs, dirty machinery, and the kind of hygiene failures that would make a back alley diner blush. The kicker wasn't the bacteria, it was the betrayal. Conagra, the producer, already knew there was risk, but stayed quiet, while Walmart kept stacking the shelves. When the truth hit, the fallout was biblical. Millions of jars pulled from stores, the brand's name dragged through every newsroom, and a flood of angry shoppers demanding accountability. Critics said Walmart's obsession with cheap sourcing, outsourcing to the lowest bidder, wasn't just cutting costs, it was cutting corners on safety. And even after the recalls faded, Great Value's troubles didn't. Customers kept complaining about spoiled jars, foul smells, and natural labels that weren't natural at all. The irony is hard to miss. A company that preaches affordability ended up costing Americans their trust. For countless households, especially those scraping by, Great Value stopped being a bargain. It became a warning label on how little value the world's biggest retailer places on the people who feed their families with it. Number 5. Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's sells rebellion in a Hawaiian shirt. Quirky, cheerful, and different. Yet behind the laid-back branding and handwritten labels lurks a truth that once sickened the nation. In 2012, the chain's Valencia creamy salted peanut butter triggered a Salmonella breadini outbreak that infected at least 42 people in 20 states. Over 60% were children under 10. Kids whose only crime was trusting a lunchbox. The culprit wasn't Trader Joe's Kitchen but Sunland Inc., a New Mexico supplier that cut corners so recklessly it could make a horror director blush. FDA investigators found dirty equipment, contaminated raw, peanuts, and paperwork proving the company had knowingly shipped salmonella-positive batches since 2009. When that came to light, the government padlocked Sunland's doors, and Trader Joe's pulled the jars from shelves. But the damage was already spreading faster than the bacteria itself. Through headlines, through public trust, through the myth of healthy store-brand food. The scandal peeled away the grocery chain's carefully painted image. Behind the friendly murals and samples of hummus stood a company that wouldn't name its suppliers or open its books to safety audits. For years, it had let customers believe Trader Joe's meant homemade integrity, even as many of its products rolled off the same industrial lines as mass-market groceries. Lawsuits later exposed natural labels hiding synthetic preservatives and sweeteners, and while the chain loves to project its carefree surfer vibe, critics note its anti-union stance and silence on sourcing ethics. The peanut butter fiasco proved that charm can't sanitize negligence. For ordinary Americans who trusted that smiling logo, it felt like realizing the neighborhood grocer wasn't a friend at all. Just another corporation selling comfort in a jar, with a side of denial. Number 6. Smucker's Natural. The word natural used to mean something, until corporations like Smucker turned it into a marketing perfume sprayed over a rotting system. In November 2011, the J.M. Smucker Company quietly recalled its Smucker's Natural Chunky Peanut Butter after fears of salmonella contamination swept across grocery aisles. The jars, stamped with "Best by August 2012, were already in countless homes before the warning ever reached the public. While no confirmed illnesses emerged, it was the kind of recall that made people stare uneasily at their kitchen shelves, wondering if their next sandwich was a time bomb. And just when the memory began to fade, 2022 brought déjà vu, another salmonella nightmare. This time through Jif, Smucker's other pride and joy. Investigators found that the same Lexington, Kentucky facility used for both brands had tested positive for salmonella a dozen times between 2010 and 2022. That's not bad luck. That's neglect disguised as efficiency. The irony cuts deep. Smucker's Natural markets itself as the simpler choice, made with just peanuts and salt. Yet simplicity doesn't excuse carelessness. Critics have accused the company of hiding behind that rustic image while outsourcing peanuts from murky supply chains and sourcing palm oil and cocoa tied to deforestation and exploitative labor. Meanwhile, the same corporation that sells natural peanut butter also profits from sugar-laden Uncrustables and syrupy jams that keep America's health crisis humming. For working families, that double game feels like betrayal wrapped in nostalgia. Smucker's once promised comfort, now it delivers confusion. Proof that in modern America, even natural comes with a corporate warning label. Number 7. Cabot Creamery. Cabot always sold itself as the good guy in a flannel shirt. A folksy Vermont co-op churning out butter straight from the heart of small-town America. But in March 2025, that wholesome image cracked like a dropped milk pail. The company announced a recall of its extra creamy unsalted butter after tests revealed contamination with coliform bacteria, the same microbial crowd that hangs out in soil, water, and, uncomfortably, fecal matter. Over 1,700 pounds of 8-ounce sticks were recalled across 7 northeastern states, including New York and Vermont. While Cabot bragged that 99% of the tainted butter was retrieved before it hit pantries, that 1% still left a bitter taste, especially for shoppers who'd believed Cabot's farm-fresh promise. Food safety experts warned that coliform doesn't just mean dirt, it's a flare gun signaling deeper sanitation failures. For a brand built on purity, the irony couldn't have been thicker. And this wasn't Cabot's first stumble on its moral soapbox. Behind the quaint barns in its ads, watchdogs say some of its partner farms rely on intensive confinement and lack real pasture access for cows. The co-op, long praised as farmer-owned, has also been accused by small members of favoring big dairy players, turning democracy into a corporate costume. Cabot isn't fully organic, doesn't guarantee pasture-raised standards, and sidesteps third-party welfare audits that true ethical dairies embrace. To many loyal buyers, this recall felt like the moment the curtain dropped. A reminder that even a brand wrapped in red barns and maple leaf charm can be just another industrial giant in plaid disguise. Number 8. Wegmans Finishing Butter. It's easy to believe that luxury means safety, that a brand wrapped in marble countertops and polite smiles must surely be immune to the dirtier corners of the food world. But in 2022, Wegmans, the darling of East Coast grocery elites, learned that even gold-plated shelves can't keep out listeria. Its lemon dill finishing butter, sold proudly under the Wegmans label but made by Epicurean Butter LLC, was recalled nationwide after contamination fears with Listeria monocytogenes, a pathogen so dangerous it laughs at refrigeration. The bacteria can kill newborns, threaten pregnancies, and strike the elderly where their immune defenses are weakest. Imagine spending extra for premium butter, only to find out it might be harboring the same microbe found in filthy factory drains. No illnesses were reported, but the public's outrage was instant and justified. Wegmans customers, who thought they were buying precision and purity, discovered that the chain, like any bargain grocer, outsources much of its signature food to unseen suppliers. The dill in the butter was traced back to a larger herb supplier already under federal watch for contamination. Wegmans moved fast to pull the product, yet its pristine image melted faster than the butter itself. Critics began asking, how many of Wegmans' private label creations are just rebadged products from third parties with questionable controls? The answer, many realized, was unsettlingly opaque. For years, the chain has sold an illusion that cleanliness, lighting, and a smile can replace transparency. The 2022 Listeria scare tore through that illusion like a hot knife through butter, proving that elegance doesn't sterilize negligence, and that even the most beautiful grocery aisles can hide the cold machinery of mass production beneath their charm. Number 9. Kirkland's Signature Butter. Costco has long sold the dream that bulk buying equals smart buying, that Kirkland's Signature is the gold seal of trust for the working-class shopper stocking up for a month. But in November 2024, that seal cracked wide open. The USDA issued a Class 2 recall of more than 79,000 pounds of Kirkland's Signature salted and unsalted butter over a labeling failure so absurd it bordered on tragic, undeclared milk allergens. Butter, of all things, forgetting to declare milk. It would be laughable if the consequences weren't potentially fatal. For the millions of Americans with severe dairy allergies, that slip wasn't a typo. It was a loaded gun on a dinner table. The oversight revealed a chilling truth. Somewhere between mass production and paperwork, safety got lost in translation. Costco pulled the products and apologized, but the very notion of Kirkland reliability suddenly felt as hollow as the empty shelves where the butter used to sit. The fallout exposed more than a misprint. Investigators and watchdogs pointed to Costco's shadowy supply chain, third-party dairies hidden behind confidentiality clauses, nameless partners that turned transparency into guesswork. It wasn't the first time either. From hepatitis-tainted berries to moldy cheese, Kirkland's track record has shown that even the warehouse giant's efficiencies come with cracks. Critics say Costco's obsession with volume and low cost turns suppliers into ghosts and quality control into a checkbox exercise. Add to that the quiet allegations of poor animal welfare and labor abuses in supplier dairies, and Kirkland's buttery image starts to look greasy. For millions who once trusted that plain red label as a badge of value and safety, the recall was more than a mistake. It was a rude awakening. The message was simple, bitter, and long overdue. When corporations hide their makers, it's the customers who pay the price. Number 10. Kerrygold. For years, Kerrygold was the butter of fairy tales. Golden, creamy, wrapped in Irish nostalgia, a symbol of purity from rolling green pastures kissed by Atlantic mist. But in late 2022, that fairy tale curdled. Investigations revealed that Kerrygold's shiny foil wrappers contain PFAS, so-called forever chemicals that linger in the human body and have been tied to cancer, hormone disruption, and infertility. The same butter that promised grass-fed wholesomeness was, ironically, delivered in packaging laced with toxic compounds. When New York and California banned PFAS in food contact materials, Kerrygold vanished from store shelves overnight, leaving bewildered shoppers wondering how their natural choice ended up on the wrong side of a chemical scandal. Ornua Foods, the brand's parent company, promised it had transitioned to safer materials, but never said when or whether millions had already eaten from the contaminated batches. For many, that silence spoke louder than any apology. The revelation struck a nerve because Kerrygold had built its empire on trust. Its golden wrapper wasn't just marketing, it was a symbol, a little square of imported purity in the chaos of industrial food. Yet behind the pastoral ads of happy cows, critics found traces of industrial dairy operations and absent animal welfare audits. A class action lawsuit in Illinois soon followed, accusing Kerrygold of deceiving customers about safety and natural integrity. The scandal joined earlier embarrassments, like its temporary ban in Wisconsin over ungraded imports, to paint a less romantic picture. The PFAS debacle didn't just tarnish the butter, it melted the illusion. Now every glint of that famous gold wrapper feels more like fool's gold, a reminder that even the most pure brands can have toxins hiding beneath their shine. Number 11. Land O'Lakes. Few brands wear Americana as proudly as Land O'Lakes once did. Its golden box and serene Native American maiden sitting like a postcard from a simpler nation that never really existed. But that pastoral illusion cracked in 2003 when the company recalled over 126,000 pounds of butter tainted with metal fragments. The USDA classified it as a Class 1 hazard, the kind that can shred your insides if swallowed. No one died, but the incident exposed a chilling truth. Even the most familiar brands can turn their factories into minefields. Behind the smiles and sunlit barns, Land O'Lakes had allowed contamination to slip through the cracks of a billion-dollar machine. What came next was uglier than any recall. Between 2003 and 2010, Land O'Lakes helped orchestrate the herd retirement program, a sanitized name for the mass slaughter of over 500,000 healthy dairy cows to keep milk prices high. Consumers paid more, small farmers suffered, and corporate coffers overflowed. The cooperative later paid $220 million to settle lawsuits without admitting guilt, a confession in everything but name. Add to that the pollution scandals, methane emissions, and a political fiasco in 2018, when donations to extremist politicians sparked public outrage, and the brand's wholesome glow curdled into corporate rot. Even its 2020 move to drop the Native American logo felt hollow, a logo swap instead of a moral reckoning. Today, Land O'Lakes still fills America's fridges, but its story is less about butter and more about betrayal, the kind that melts slower than dairy but lingers far longer in the national conscience. Number 12. NH European Style. Butter Blend. The name sounds like luxury, a butter so refined it could whisper in French. But in July 2025, NH European Style Butter Blend became shorthand for corporate embarrassment. Bunge North America, the global agribusiness behind it, recalled more than 64,000 pounds of the blend after discovering the packaging failed to list milk as an allergen. It's almost absurd, forgetting to declare milk and butter, but the consequences could have been lethal. For anyone with a severe dairy allergy, a single bite could trigger anaphylaxis, shutting down breathing in minutes. The FDA labeled it a Class 2 recall, spanning multiple states and even exports to the Dominican Republic. Over 1,800 cases were already sold before the alarms rang. Bunge called it a labeling irregularity. Regulators called it negligence. What made the fiasco sting wasn't just the label, it was who made it. Bunge, a billion-dollar titan, should have had fortress-level quality control. Instead, the same company once tied to deforestation in Brazil and accused of enabling land grabs was now tripping over basic food safety. Reports showed its soy suppliers had cleared 50,000 acres of habitat, displacing indigenous people, while Bunge touted sustainability. Meanwhile, OSHA citations piled up for unsafe U.S. factory conditions. The irony, a European-style butter that embodied everything wrong with industrial America. Cheap shortcuts wearing imported charm. When the recall hit, the illusion melted. Beneath the sleek label wasn't refinement, but recklessness. It proved that in today's food chain, even the butter can carry the bitter aftertaste of corporate rot disguised as sophistication. Number 13. Homestead Creamery. For years, Homestead Creamery was the darling of small-town America, the kind of brand that made people believe purity still came in a glass bottle. Its butter and milk from Virginia's Blue Ridge were marketed as the honest antithesis of industrial food. Cows on pasture, families at work, a simpler life in every bite. But in October 2020, that wholesome illusion soured. The creamery recalled its salted and unsalted butters after fears of listeria contamination spread through the Southeast. No illnesses were reported, but the scare proved that even hand-churned charm can't sterilize reality. Listeria doesn't care about nostalgia. It thrives in the cold, creeping quietly through coolers and refrigerators, the very places we trust most. Homestead blamed an ingredient supplier, But the truth was less comforting. Small dairies still swim in the same industrial pool as the giants they claim to defy. The incident cracked something deeper than a safety seal. Employees later whispered about expansion deals and milk quietly sourced from larger farms, while locals complained about odors and runoff from the growing facility in Franklin County. The family dairy image, once their moral currency, now felt like costume. As watchdogs pointed out, Homestead's quest to grow had slowly blurred into the same system it once stood against. Centralized, scaled up, and increasingly detached from the soil it romanticized. For loyal customers, the listeria scare became a symbol of that shift. Proof that farm fresh can turn corporate faster than butter melts on a summer porch. The label still reads local, but for many Virginians, the taste of trust has gone slightly sour. Number 14, Zander's Creamery. Zander's Creamery once sounded like a slice of Americana. Farm fresh butter churned under the wide Minnesota sky. But in April 2004, that picture curdled into scandal. The small dairy announced a sweeping recall of all its butter and butterine products after bacterial contamination. Fears sent federal regulators scrambling. Unlike supermarket recalls that stay contained, Zander's supplied restaurants, hotels, and cafeterias across the Midwest, meaning its tainted butter was already melting on breakfast toast before anyone knew the danger. Tens of thousands of pounds vanished overnight, and the FDA labeled it high risk, citing unsanitary conditions that read more like a horror script than a hygiene report. Investigators found mold, buildup on machinery, and skipped cleaning cycles as management rushed orders out the door. One employee confessed they'd scraped and repackaged old butter to cut waste, proof that neglect had seeped into the very churns that built the brand. The collapse was swift and merciless. Restaurant chains severed ties, lawsuits piled up, and by 2008, Zander's shuttered its butter division for good. Insiders whispered that the problem wasn't bad luck, it was arrogance. The company had grown too large for its equipment and too small for industrial scrutiny, living in the no-man's land between handmade and mass-produced. Even the dairies it sourced from were later accused of animal neglect and antibiotic overuse. What killed Zander's wasn't just contamination, it was the illusion of local tradition stretched beyond its truth. The name has faded, but its ghost lingers every time we unwrap butter in a diner, never knowing how many shortcuts stand between nostalgia and our next bite. Number 15. I can't believe it's not butter. It started as a joke that America swallowed whole, a bright yellow tub with a name that sounded like a punchline. I can't believe it's not butter promised guilt-free indulgence, the kind of miracle spread that let dieters dream of croissants without consequence. But behind the campy Fabio commercials and 90s optimism was something darker hiding in plain sight. An industrial chemistry experiment dressed up as breakfast. For decades, Unilever's butter substitute was packed with partially hydrogenated oils. The main source of trans fats, now infamous for clogging arteries and shortening lives. Even after the FDA banned those oils in 2015, Unilever quietly reformulated the product while keeping the heart-healthy halo. Labels claimed 0 grams of trans fat, but thanks to an FDA loophole, that simply meant less than half a gram per serving. A few generous spreads later, and that 0 could hit you right in the chest. Literally. Then came the spray scandal. In 2019, a class-action lawsuit revealed that the 0-calorie butter spray had simply redefined math. A serving lasted less than 1 second. Anyone actually cooking with it was swallowing hundreds of calories. The court threw out the case, but the court of public opinion didn't. And while Unilever rebranded under plant-based sustainability, watchdogs were exposing its palm oil suppliers for deforestation, child labor, and carbon destruction across Indonesia. The irony was rancid, a plant-based product built on environmental ruin. Today, I can't believe it's not butter has become less a brand than a warning label. Proof that in corporate America, disbelief isn't about flavor anymore. It's about how far companies will go to sell you the lie that poison tastes like progress. The truth is melting faster than butter. Subscribe now before the next safe brand on your shelf turns toxic too.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of the newest and best videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.